Okay, we are all here, and I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited to share this particular section because it is really wild. Hence, the title of today's session is God Gone Wild. So let's see what's up. Let's just get to the reading. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam. Do I need these? Because these get messy. You know, they're like not clean. Evam anu shasyat majan swayam anushishtan apilo kanushashanartham. Mahanubhava paramasurid bhagavan Rishabha padesha upashamashilanam uparatakarmanam mahamuninam bhakti jnana vairagya lakshanam paramahangsya dharmam upashikshmana svatanaya shatta jeshtam parama bhagavad jnana parayanam bharatam dharani palanayabhishya swayam bhavana evor varita sharira matra parigraha. This is a long paragraph. Unmativa gaggana paridhana parikirna kesha atmani ropavahanniyo brahmavartat pravavarja. Okay, let's speak English. The most experienced, that's Anubhav. So it said he had, what, Paramanubhav or something? Mahanubhav. Super experienced. So, like, there's a concept of knowledge and then experience. When you have experience, it's called Anubhav, or like the result of something becoming real. So he's called the most experienced and also supremely affectionate, which was Paramasurit. Mahanubhav Paramasurit Bhagavan Rishabha. The most experienced, supremely affectionate, all-attractive Rishabha thus educated his children for the sake of the world, for they were already well educated. So it's evam, means like this, in this way. So we just finished that section where he was telling his kids philosophy, but in this assembly of this whole meeting of all these people. So what it explains here is that the kids Anushishthanapi, they were already educated. He had already taught them these things already, but he was just using the opportunity to speak to his children as an indirect way of speaking to everybody else that was listening. For loka anushashanartam, for the sake of educating the world. To protect the earth, he consecrated his throne to Bharata, the eldest. So guess what's going to happen now? So this means Rishabdev is finished being active. He's retiring. He's retiring from his career. His career was he was the king of the world, and now he's done. So he's making sure that the world has a new king before he heads off and goes crazy. He's going to make sure that the world has somebody to protect it, to take care of it. The ruler of the world is actually called the protector of the world, and that's an interesting and important thing. So to protect the earth, he consecrated his throne, Abhishincha. That's also a word from Nakshatra Sutra, Taittiriya Brahmana, about, I think it's Uttara Bhadrapada. He consecrates things. So he consecrated his throne to Bharata, the eldest, Jeshta, the eldest of his Shata Atmaja, of his 100 children. Not just because he was the eldest, but because he's the greatest devotee of Bhagavan and was dedicated to Bhagavan's followers. That's how you can tell if a person is actually dedicated to Bhagavan, if they're dedicated to the followers. That's the whole point of what Rishabhadev was just telling the kids. So, basically up to this point, the statements we've got is just that he instructed his kids for the sake of everybody listening, and then he's done ruling, he's done being a king and all that. He makes sure that the earth has somebody to take care of it, And now he's going to do something else. He then began to illustrate how people behave when they have absolute equanimity and what people strive for when their desires are completely satiated. He began to show the path meant for the topmost swans, great scholars excelling in devotion, knowledge, and detachment. So this is really interesting. I want to show you how this is worded. Upashamashilana. He's going to show, now he wants to show, Upashikshamana, he wants to show, and this was actually what he thought before he planned this avatar. I can't now actually remember the full details about that. But he thought he would do this, that he would accomplish this mission as this avatar. He wanted to show this path of Upashamashilana. So Shilana means your behavior. What is your behavior like if you are very equal to everything? If you have no preferences, what would you behave like? Because the whole world moves based on preferences. North prefers south, plus prefers minus. And so they get attracted or repulsed from certain things, and that's how you get movement and change in the world. But what does the world look like if north prefers north and south equally? If plus prefers plus and minus equally? What would happen then? He wants to show that. What would a person behave like if they're equal to everything and they don't have preferences? Already incredible. Wait, Alf, just wait. All right. Then he wants to show uparata karmana. Karma means something that you're endeavoring for. Karma means an action which you're doing for the sake of a result. But so karma is always driven by rati. Karma is driven by desire. Actions are driven by emotions, motivations. Desires cause actions. So what would the actions be of a person whose rati is fulfilled? Uparata. What if there's a person whose lust is already fulfilled? What would they do? What if there's a person whose desires are already fulfilled? What would they do? There was an interview with kids about money and becoming rich. I forget, maybe it was on BBC or something. My wife showed me this. And one kid said he or she, I can't remember, doesn't want to become rich because if you're rich, then you have nothing else to do. Then you'll become depressed because you have nothing else to try to strive for. So that's the question here. What would a person do if they already have what they want? He wants to show what you would act like if you don't want anything. Mahamuninam, what do the great sages act like who have bhakti, jnana, vairagya, lakshana, who have this particular lakshana, who have a trademark of either having bhakti, devotion, jnana, knowledge, or vairagya, detachment, or ideally all three. Those are the Paramahamsa Dharma. That's the swan, like the topmost swan Dharma. So he wants to show that. So guess what? That's what he's going to show now. So the next thing in English is, the most experienced, supremely affectionate, all-attractive Rishabha thus educated his children for the sake of the world, for they were already well-educated. To protect the earth, he consecrated his throne to Bharata, the eldest of his 100 children, a topmost devotee of Bhagavan, dedicated to Bhagavan's followers. He then began to illustrate how people behave when they have absolute equanimity, what people strive for when their desires are completely satiated. He began to show the path meant for the topmost swans, great scholars excelling in devotion, knowledge, and detachment. For a while, he remained in his own place, swabhavane, but accepted only leftovers and only as much as his body absolutely needed to survive. Let me hide this next part first. So this was his first practice in retired life. He remained, it doesn't really literally say he remained in his house, but bhavana is a word for house. Like in astrology, we say the bhavas. First house, second house. So he remained in his house, but he stopped using it as a place for enjoyment. And so the big thing that he did, as you notice actually with most yogis, is the first thing that they do is control their diet. Because sex and eating is the main way that we enjoy life. So sex is, you don't do it like 3 times a day probably. So it's more of a focus on what you do with your eating. So his principle was nobody was allowed to cook for him. He wouldn't cook for himself. Nobody would cook for him. No food would be prepared specifically for him. He would just eat whatever was left over from other people. And he wouldn't eat more than his body absolutely needed to survive so that he didn't die of starvation. As if insane, he dressed in only the sky, and his uncombed hair scattered and knotted. So, not only that, but he's not wearing clothes anymore. So he stopped getting dressed. This is also how you control your sex life, by the way. Clothes are odd like that, aren't they? Supposedly they're modest, but actually they're not. They're flirtatious. So as if insane, he dressed in only the sky and his uncombed hair. So he stopped combing his hair. So that's how he's dealing with the sexual drive. So he's moderating the sex drive and the diet. So that's kind of wild. Now he's going crazy, as if insane. He looks like a madman. And he's in his house, right? So he starts off by staying in his house in the palace, where people know him, but that's going to become a problem. So at first, but now he's like naked and not bathing, not combing his hair, not eating. This thing is getting a little weird. And this is the behavior of a person that doesn't want anything. Almost. This is some of the behavior of a person that doesn't want anything. This is the behavior of a person who has no preferences, no biases. Soon, he placed the sacrificial fire within himself and left the capital to Rome. So the interesting thing here is he put the sacrificial fire inside himself. So in a Vedic setting or whatever society, a home is organized. Actually, really, a home is where the hearth is. This famous saying that got modified to home is where the heart is, but home is where the hearth is. So in the old days, in any society, a home was built around a fire, because the fire is where you cook and where you warm up. So the fire is essential for domestic life. In the Vedic society, they had special types of fire. They had a fire that they would use for cooking. They had a fire that they would use for warming. They had a fire they would invoke with different mantras and maybe use different ingredients to burn. And they had fire that they would use for sacrifices and religious functions. So the home was organized around this Agni altar. And that's why it's beneficial even for a yogi to be in a home, because then you have a place to do your ceremony. But what he's able to do, and what the Paramahamsa does, what the Supreme Swan does, is they don't require the external ceremony anymore. They don't require any externals of religion or spiritual practice or anything anymore. They just take the essence of all those things within themselves, and then they can leave them behind. So he took the fire into his heart, means that he's going to be doing the essence of ceremonies and sacrifices now, and not the actual ceremonies and sacrifices. And because of that, he no longer needs to be near the fire. Because of that, he can leave. And it will become clear in a while that one of the things that he keeps trying to do is distance himself. Distance himself from the common world. So the first thing that he kind of feels motivated to do is get out of his kingdom. You can imagine this. If I this actually the same thing happened to me in my life when I was a teenager. The way that I got involved in Hare Krishna and everything was because I distanced myself from New York, where I grew up. So you can imagine, like, if you were a king or whatever you are, wherever you are, everybody who's around you expects you to keep being that thing. And if you leave, then you have a clean slate to start from. So if you were previously the emperor, everybody keeps feeling like it's so weird that nobody's cooking for you. It's so weird that you're not getting dressed. It's so everybody keeps kind of pulling on you to go back to that previous way of being. So the first things that he wants to do is he wants to leave. And he doesn't just leave his home, he leaves his whole capital. He leaves the whole country. And that's pretty important to make sense of what's going to happen to him later. Because he's going to go to a country and land where he's not known. Because even if he leaves, even if he adopts the swan-like discipline now, everybody still knows that he's Rishabha, the former emperor. Right, so everybody's going to go out of their way to serve him, etc., etc., etc. But he does not want that. So he's going to leave. So Rishabha probably left India. And probably went north. Well, the only way out of India is north, isn't it? So he probably went north and into China. Probably into China. Maybe he went left and went into Persia. Probably went to China. Anyway, he left his kingdom. Okay? Any questions up to this of what's happening so far? Avadhuta, the avadhuta word is going to come up real soon, Ruchira. Next statement. Oh, here it is. Avadhuta. Jananda mukha badhira pishachon mada kavat. Avadhuta vesha. Abhibhasyamanopi jananam grihita maunavratas tushnim babhuva. Accepting the avadhuta vesh, the lifestyle of the reject, he seemed retarded, blind, mute, deaf, or deranged by a demon. Even if anyone tried to talk to him, he adhered to a vow of silence and would not respond. So there's this word avadhuta. You can see somebody in the chat, Ruchira. She loves this word. People like this word is very famous. We like this word, avadhuta. What it really means is somebody who's a reject, somebody who's been rejected or who rejects things. So the avadhuta is like a social reject, a social outcast. So there's two types of avadhutas. There's ones which are uncontrollably avadhutas, and there are ones which are intentionally avadhutas. They're just the rejects, and then there's the saintly rejects, the people who reject things out of actually having sattvic non-bias. But this is the behavior now of a person who has no motives, of a person who has no preferences. They seem retarded. Jada. Because they're not motivated. They seem blind because they're not looking at things. Anda. Mook, they seem mute because they're not talking about the Star Wars. So they're not talking about the Jetsons. They're not talking about Kim Kardashian. They seem deaf because they're not listening to what people are saying about them. They seem pishacha unmadaka. They seem like they're haunted by a ghost because they still look like an ordinary person, but they are deranged. They're not acting normal. So it seems like they're haunted. So this is what the people thought of him that encountered him roaming around up in Tibet and China. That weren't aware, like, hey, the emperor has gone crazy. The emperor has taken avadhuta vesh. You can't do that, really. You can't take avadhuta vesh in your neighborhood. Sannyas Vesh, Babaji Vesh. You can't do it in your neighborhood because then everybody remembers it's you. They know it's you. You have to leave all the people that know who you are, and then that's how you can do your thing. So he had such a vow of silence. He was so silent that even when people would talk to him, he refused to respond. So they thought, this guy must be retarded. He must be mute. Do you even have a voice? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you see? Are you blind? That's Vishnu. This is Vishnu. Don't forget, this is Vishnu, Avatar, Rishabha. Tatra. Here's another long one. Putting on my glasses. Tatra tatra puragrama kara keta vata karvata shibira vraja gosha sarta giri vanashrama dishu anupatam avanichara pashadai paribhuyamano mashikabhiriva vanagajas Tarjana Thadanava Mehana Stivana Grava Shakrid Raja Prakshepa Putivata Duruktis Tad Avigyan Evastat Sangstan Etasmin Dehopalakshane Sad Apadesh Ubhyamananubhav Surupena Swamahima Avasthanena Samaropitaham Mama Bhimanatavat. Wait till you get the translation of this. This is good stuff. Avikandita mana prithivim ekachara paribbrahma. So now the question will arise, how did he like it? Walking around having people, what kind of interactions did he have with these people after they're thinking, here's a retard, here's a crazy retard who's deaf and dumb and haunted by a ghost. How are people going to treat him? Don't forget, it's Vishnu and it's the former emperor. He roamed many paths. Roamed, like he doesn't have a particular destination, but he's just roaming. He roamed many paths here and there, through the woods and over the hills, past cities and villages, mine towns, farm towns and farms, valley towns and forts, herder towns and pastures, hostels and hermitage. Like so he's roaming through all these places. He went very far. Like flies on an elephant. People denigrated him as an outcast vagabond, like flies on an elephant. The implication of that analogy is the elephant doesn't really care that the flies are on it. I've seen cows and elephants with flies walking literally in their eye, and they don't care. Doesn't bother them. So people denigrated Rishabha. You retard. Hey, what are you, stupid? Like flies on an elephant. He didn't care. They accused and assaulted him. They assaulted him. Pissing, spitting, and throwing stones, dung, and dust at him. Farting and burping in his face. Now, that is funny. That's puti vata. His farts and burps literally means stinky air. So how do people treat him? Very, like, the past is not that different from the present. They treated him the same way that we treat people today. They vent their frustrations on a person who is weak, who appears weak. So here's this guy who won't retaliate. Here's this guy who won't talk back. Here's this guy that looks so down and out. Good, let's beat him up. And that's what they did. And how did he feel about that? Like, he was like the elephant, how the elephant feels about flies. He doesn't even notice it. slightly. He totally ignored it. And then this part is really very good. I might really go back to the Sanskrit for this one. This is really good. Very detailed and very important stuff here. Avigyan, he ignored them. Eva asat samstana. He thought this, everything, all the stuff, samstana, everything, all the stuff is asat. It's not really real. Etasmin eva asat samstana. In this unreal world, deha upalakshane sad apadesh. Our body, our self, our being, our deha, upalakshana, it takes on the quality of sat. Apadesh, it gets ascribed the quality of sat. In the asat world, we find things to be sat. Why? Asat means, let's say, unreal, and sat means real. In the unreal world, we find things to be real. Why? We find ourselves to be real in the unreal world. Only because apadesh ubhyanubhav surupena. Sorry, that's not it. Ubhyanubhav surupena somahima. Sad apadesh, because of our looking at them, because of our investment of our realness into them. We are real. The conscious, the experiencer is real. What we are experiencing has realness ascribed to it, not because it itself is real, but because we are real. And we are observing it. So write that on a memo and send it to the people that are dealing with quantum physics, because that's what's going on. Reality is not something which is already there. Reality is something which consciousness generates by its consciousness, by its observation. It creates observables. So what he's saying is, here I am in this situation with all these people spitting at me, farting on me, throwing cow dung at me, throwing rocks at me. It's not real. The only realness in it is as much as I give it. The only realness in life is as much attention that we pay to it. So pay attention to the thing that you want to be real and ignore the stuff that you don't. He knew that the world was an unreal place, and our place in it only seems real because we observe it. Truly understanding the real and the unreal, he stationed himself in the intrinsic glory of his intrinsic form, without any superimpositions of pride and ego that arise from the concept of I am what I own. Let me show you the Sanskrit for this. That's ubhyanubhava. Ubhyanubhava means having really solid understanding and experience of both sat and asat. Having a real comprehension of what's real and what's not real. He was able to surupena, be himself, find within himself swamahima, his own glory within himself. He didn't feel denigrated by anybody's insults. You retard, you dirty bastard. Those words didn't affect him because he had experience. He was stationed. Avasthana. Station means like where a train comes into a station and it gets shelter and it can stay there. He was stationed within his own glory that exists within his own self. So he felt glorious. He didn't need people to glorify him. And he didn't mind if people denigrated him and assaulted him and abused him. Because he had his own internal self-worth. Swarupena swamahima avasthanen and asamaropitam. Asamaropita aham mama. Without the superimpositions, aropa means to superimpose something on something else. Without superimposing aham mama. Now this is important. Aham mama, we generally translate as I am mine. But what aham mama actually means is I am mine. Meaning, I am my house. I am my fatness. I am my skinniness. I am my eyelash color, length. I am my gender. I am my weight. I am my species. I am my age. I am my car. I am my house. I am my title. I am my job. I am my knowledge. That's what aham mama is, and all of that stuff that comes after I am is a superimposition upon the I. If we have the I defined by the superimpositions, then any attack or insult upon the superimposition damages the I. I am my car. If you break my car, you break me. I am my beauty. If you insult my beauty, you insult me. So the more that we define the self by what we own and possess, the weaker and more damageable and more fragile we become. So Rishabha was untouchable, undamageable, because he had no superimpositions upon himself. That's the behavior of somebody who's upashama, completely equipoised. They don't need anything. That's why they seem dumb and retarded. Because they don't motivate to pursue anything. Because they don't need anything. That's strength. That's strength. That's imperviousness. Strength is not in making your body iron coated. Strength is not in making your everything impervious. Strength is in letting go of all that stuff. Not allowing that stuff to actually define you. So his mind was avikandita. It wasn't shattered. It wasn't disturbed. It wasn't broken. It wasn't split. It was concentrated and calm. Avikandita mana prithivim ekachara. All by himself. Paribhabrahma. He wandered all over Prithvi. That means he probably went more far than China. All by himself. I wonder where he went. Also, there's a Fugazi song. I don't know if anybody remembers the band Fugazi. But Fugazi has a song, I don't remember the title. I think it's You Are Not What You Own. But it goes, you are not what you own, so you better stop being just what you are. It was a very good song. It's practically exactly what the Vedas are trying to teach. Now, so text 30 has described how people treated him. You're going to find out that in the next text, you're going to realize that this is basically how men treated him. Women have a different reaction to him. So that's also interesting. Men see another man who is good looking and handsome, like who has some glory to him, but looks all like unable to utilize it, and they take advantage of it to express their superiority. Because that's what men do. They vie for superiority. I mean, that's what everybody does because everybody has a manly disposition. But anyway, this 30 is mostly about how the men reacted to him, throwing rocks at him, insulting him, farting on him, etc. That's so funny. Couldn't you imagine people farting at him? All right, now this next one is going to be how the women reacted to him. Atisukumara Karachara Nora Sthala Vipula Bhahu Vamsa Ngala Vadanadi Avayava Vinyasa Prakriti Sundara Swabhavahasa Sumuko Navanalina Dala Yamana Shashira Tararunayata Nayana Ruchira Sadrisha Subhaga Kapalokarna Kantanaso Viguda Smita Vadana Mahotsavena Puravanitanam Manasi Kusuma Sarasanam Ubadadhana Parag Avalambamana Kutila Jatila Kapisha Kesh Bhuri Bharo Avadhuta Malina Nija Shrirena Graha Grihita Ivadrishyata. His very youthful hands, feet, chest, long arms, shoulders, neck, and face were naturally beautiful, each on their own, and in the way they complemented each other, so in the way they connected as well. His kind, by the way, this particular statement really struck me. This is a good example of how it takes more art to write prose artistically than it does to write poem artistically. So this statement is really beautiful prose. Anyway, the features of Rishabha's form are beautiful. Each one independently on its own is beautiful, but also the way that they offset and complement each other, the way that they come together. That word is also going to be used later. The way that they join together the same exact word is going to be used to describe something else. His kind face had a natural smile, and his delightful eyes were like lotus petals, cooling, sparkling, and reddish at the edges. His forehead, ears, neck, and nose enriched the eyes of those who saw them, and surrounded a face with a mysterious vigudha, a mysterious, curious, deep smile. That was an object of delight, mahotsavena, for the cosmopolitan women, puravanitanam, and which delivered their hearts to Cupid's arrow. His abundant brown hair draped all around him in curls and knots, bundles. Kutila Jatila. Kutila is curls, Jatila is knots or bunches. Yet it seemed that he was haunted by a ghost, because his body was dirty from neglect. So the women that happened to see him along the way, they couldn't help but be attracted to him, even though he was dirty and seemed haunted. They just felt like, let's cure him of this haunting. Let's cure him of this madness, because he's freaking gorgeous. And their hearts were delivered to Cupid because the thing that really delivered the hearts to Cupid is the Viguda Smita. That kind of mysterious smile. Like, what is that smile? What are you smiling? What are you planning? That sort of smile that captivated their hearts. So there's two kinds of reactions to him. One is approving and one is disapproving. And basically the men were disapproving and the women were approving. Yeah, they thought, right, Devon, they thought they were going to clean him up and take him home and make him a nice teddy bear. 32. How did he react? Yarhivava sa Bhagavan lokamimam. He saw lokamimam yogasyada pratipadam. He thought, this is really a pain in the butt to my yoga. Yarhivavasa Bhagavan Lokamimam Yoga Sadha Pratipam Iva Chakshanas Tat Pratikirya Karma Bibhishitamiti Vratam Ajagaram Astita Shayana Evashnati Pibati Kadati Avamehati Hadati Sma Cheshtamana Ucharita Adigdodesha. So wait till you hear this. This is the wild stuff. So what he thought is, these people are really a pain. So he's reacting that way to both of them. Now remember, he didn't care about them for his pride, but he thinks let me read it in English. The all attractive then realized all of these people are really getting in the way of my yoga. Yoga Syadha Pratipam Lokam Imam. All these people, all of them, whether it's the people from 30 throwing stones at him or it's the people from 31 that want to clean him up and make him their husband, they're all getting in the way of my yoga. And then he thinks, Tat Pratikriya Karma. I need to do something to counteract them. Bibhishtam. I need to do something that would disgust them and make them want to leave me alone. Let me make them want to leave me alone. There's one famous sadhu from the 19th century who mostly lived inside a toilet for this very same reason. A public toilet in Calcutta. Oh my God. So he thought, these people are bothering me, whether they're trying to insult me or whether they're trying to praise me, whether they're trying to hit me or whether they're trying to hug me. They're interrupting my concentration. Let me see if I can do something to get rid of them. Let me see if I can do something to make them, scare them away. Bibhishita. And for that sake, I will do something to get rid of these nosy people. I've thought of translating that as looky-loos. Achakshanas, the people that keep coming and looking at me. Just leave me alone. I will do something to get rid of all these nosy people, something they will consider revolting. So he took the vow of the python. So you know how there's different kind of kung fu styles? Like in Kung Fu Panda, there's crane, mantis, snake, a tiger. Well, there's also different kinds of yoga styles that also imitate animals. So he thought he would do python style yoga. Well, pythons, they stay in one place. And they wait for stuff to crawl into their mouth. And then they eat it, and then they poop, and they stay right there. So he took the vow of the python, getting food, eating, drinking, urinating, and defecating, and even sleeping all in one place without moving. Living like this, stool smeared his entire body. So that was his thought. Let me do something that people will think is gross. Let me put poop all over myself. So they'll just leave me alone. So I'm just not going to move. Whatever comes over here and I can eat, I'll eat. I'll just poop right here. I'll pee right here. I'll sleep right here. People will leave the place because it's disgusting. This is not just Rishabha. This is a thing. This is a thing. When you get into Paramahamsa level, the people that are the looky-loos, the observers, they're a pain in the butt. Not for your ego, not for your whatever, but to just keep interrupting your yoga. So a lot of them resort to ways to get people to leave them alone. So they do scary things, like sleep in a graveyard, eat out of a skull, make people think that they're sorcerers, things like that. Just leave me alone. So he thought, I'm just going to cover myself in shit. So the one thing to note also that's important is, for a yogi, this is also the behavior of a person that has no preferences. They find both the insult and the adoration to be equally annoying. But, ladies and gentlemen, he tried to isolate himself, Sunita, but people keep following him. Did you hear about that wild guy? Did you hear about that crazy guy? I mean, also don't forget, he doesn't really have particular preferences. So he just wants to be okay just wherever he is. Alf, that is also a very important takeaway from this. Watch who you beat up. Watch who you insult. It might, it is Vishnu. Anyway, see, these people had no idea that they were farting at Bhagavan. That they were throwing dung at Bhagavan. But they were. I wonder what we're doing by doing the mean things that we do to each other. Now, do you think that this worked? Do you think this would work? It would work if it was me or you, I'll tell you that much. I don't think we could tolerate even doing it, because we do have preferences and we don't want to smell that. But it didn't quite work for him, and there's an interesting reason why. Tasya ya purisha surabhi sugandhya vayus tam desham dashi yoganam sumantat surabhim chakara. You guys think that you can go somewhere and you'll be okay, but you can't. There's such a thing called fame, and if you've ever had it, you can't get away from it. But the problem that he found is that his stool was delightfully perfumed, and the entire country for 10 miles around began to smell good. So his plan didn't work very well, because he's Vishnu. But nothing about him is revolting, because he's Satchidananda. So the stool that he produces is also Satchidananda. It's not decomposing matter. So what happened is people became more interested in him. Oh my God, what is this guy smeared in? What is he producing? It looks nice. It smells nice. What is this? Everybody come here and look at this weirdo who smells great. The whole area around him smells great. So that didn't work. So he decided a different approach. Evam Go mriga kaka charyaya. Go mriga kaka charyaya. Vrajams. Vrajams tishtams asina shayana. Go mriga kaka charyaya vrajams tishtan asina shayana. Karka mriga go charita pibati kadati avamehati sma. Why would he want to see into the future, Sunita? We use our powers to achieve things that we want. So what would be the point of using a power if it would interrupt or interfere with what you want? He wants to enjoy the experience. He wants to enjoy this experience of trying to be a sadhu. So why would he look ahead to see how the story ends? Although he can. So he adopted the behavior of, so he decided, the python thing isn't working. So I'm going to adopt a triple style now. The cow, deer, crow style. Go mriga kaka. So he adopted the behavior of cows, deer, and crows, specifically in how they stay, flee, and lie, eat, drink, and evacuate, towards people who were like crows, deer, and cows. So this is kind of sutraized statement. Let me unpack this for you. He wants to experience he wants to show and experience. He wants to teach. He doesn't need to be left alone. He needs to teach people how to do Paramahamsa Dharma. He needs to teach how to do avadhuta Dharma. That was his intention of doing this. Remember, the thing about Rishabha that's interesting is that he taught all dharmas. While he was young, he taught sciences and trades. While he was older, he taught morality and religion. At the end, he taught bhakti and how you practically practice bhakti. And then after retirement, he taught how to be an avadhuta. So he's teaching how to do that. He's not going to exhibit some superhuman power to be able to accomplish something, because he's teaching people who don't have those powers. So what is this? What is the cow, deer, crow method? Okay, so basically what it's saying is he's going to treat cows like cows, deers like deers, and crows like crows. That's the method. So cows means sattvic people, deer means rajasic people, and crows means tamasic people. Those are the three basic types. So by crows, it's referring to the people that were from text 30. The tamasic people, the angry people, the hateful people. The people that are yelling at him, throwing stones at him, farting on him, throwing stool at him. Deer are the city women, the enamored people, the people that think he's fantastic. And cows have not yet been described. We just heard about crows and deer so far. That type of people. So he's going to act like a crow to a crow. He's going to act like a deer to a deer. And he's going to act like a cow to a cow. When insulting crow people would come to him, he would defecate like a crow. What does that mean? Poop on the head. What does a bird do? How does a bird poop? Poops on your head. Or squawk and peck at them, and they would run away. So to be a crow, the crow technique is when a crow approaches you, crow it back. The crow comes trying to throw stool at you, poop on its head. The crow comes trying to punch you, punch it. Bite it in the face. And act like a crow. Be crazy. Those people will just leave you alone. That's how you deal with aggressors. You just aggress them. You do never flee from an aggressor. The aggressor will then just know that you're weak, and then they'll pounce. And they'll get encouraged and they'll pounce. Always go right into the face of the aggressor. Of course, unless you're sure that you're incapable of dealing with it. And then fleeing is your only option. But that's how he's going to deal with the crow. Poop on them before they could poop on me and get them to go away. Then how does he deal with the deer? When the deer people, what does a deer do? So that's the crow is in terms of how it defecates and eats, by pecking and pooping. The deer, it's asana, how it gets up and runs. So that's the trademark of a deer, is it flees very quickly. So but the other trademark of a deer is very romantic, very beautiful, very lovey. So when the deer people come, the people that love him, want to praise him, want to embrace him, then he gets the hell out of there. He goes somewhere else. He flees. And if the cows came, the cows are the sattvic people, so the cows are just the people that sit there. You know, cows, they just stand around. Cows are some of the most boring creatures from a passionate point of view. They just stand around and chew on grass. They don't have any big plans. They don't have any big ambitions. They don't really move unless somebody moves them. They just stand there. So that represents the kind of person who's like kind of dispassionate and just is coming to observe. A different kind of an observer, a person who heard there's a sadhu here and is curious. To those people, he would also just stand there. Iti nana yoga chara chanano bhagavan kaivalya pati rishabho avirata parama mahanandanubhava atmani sarvesham bhutanam atma bhute bhagavati vasudevatmano avyavadhananantarodara bhavena siddha samastarta paripurno yogaishvaryanti vaihayasa mano javantardhana parakaya pravesha duragrahanadini yadrichayopagathani nanjasa nripa hridayena So this is kind of referring to Sunita asking why wouldn't you use superpowers. In my text I have cows to crows and crows to cows. Let me check that. You mean I put it in the wrong order? So this is fixed now? One crow, people will come to him, and he would defecate like a crow. If cow people will come, okay, good. Okay. So now, this is the concluding statement. Rishabha, the all-attractive master of oneness, Bhagavan Kaivalya Pati Rishabha. Kaivalya. Kevala means onlyness. Onlyness, just only. It means one. Kaivalya means oneness. Kaivalya Pati means the protector of oneness, the master of oneness, the keeper of oneness, the owner of oneness. So Bhagavan Rishabha is Kaivalya Pati, but he does behave differently to people who behaved differently. This is oneness in its manifestation. Oneness is the oneness of principle to treat people the way that they treat you. Is oneness, is equalness towards people. Sometimes we think, let me be equal to everybody. So when a guy comes at me with a knife, I should welcome that person just as much as when a guy comes forward with a hug. That's not oneness. That's tamas. That's not seeing the difference between things. That's ignorance of the differences. Oneness is not ignorant to differences. And how is that possible? The oneness is you treat everybody the same way, but the way that they treat you determines how you react to them. You're equally open to everybody, but if A comes at you with a hug, then A gets a hug. If A comes at you with a knife, then A gets a knife. That's oneness. That's equality. So Rishabha, the all-attractive master of oneness, thus behaved differently to people who behaved differently. He experienced endless and supremely extreme joy within himself. So this part is really intense. He experienced endless and supremely extreme joy. That word, supremely extreme joy. Parama Mahananda. Parama Mahananda. So you know the word ananda. Mahananda. Parama Mahananda. He experienced Parama Mahananda Anubhav. He experienced it Atmani, within himself. Good one, Davana. What about treating elders in this mode of sense of oneness? what they give to us, we give to them. Or you give something which is complementary to what they give to you. So if somebody is able to give you knowledge, then the best way to react is to give them your ear. The mirror image is not always the same. Sometimes it's opposite. So it's receptive to the thing. So to elders, you give them respect and you give them your ear. Yes, we should, Suraj. I don't see how that's not the point. Okay. Oh, shouldn't we show compassion to people who have mental ailments? So in other words, you're saying, if somebody is an insane madman and therefore comes at me with a knife, that I should let him kill me? No, I should treat him like an insane madman coming at me with a knife. So I should get rid of his knife and give him some treatment. Everybody is specific. So because everybody is different, therefore the person in oneness is also different towards everybody. The particular kind of mental ailment will make a difference in how the action is taken. Rishabha, the all-attractive master of oneness, thus behaved differently to people who behave differently. He experienced endless, supreme, extreme joy within himself by finding himself within all things and experiencing the connectedness of everything to the all-attractive pure consciousness. This is very interesting because he's Vishnu. It's interesting how they worded it. Usually it's worded as they find Vishnu in all things, but this is Vishnu enjoying the path of Paramahamsa Yoga. So what he's experiencing is, whoa, I am in all these things. Look at me in all these things. So it's just a slightly different wording, which is quite interesting. He finds himself within all things and experiences the connectedness of everything. And that connectedness is the same word that was used when it was talking about his bodily features and how they're beautiful in and of themselves and also the way they connect. So the point is that all of everything, all life and all matter and everything that exists is the divinity Vishnu. And the fascinating part is about how it's all connected. That was what was fascinating Rishabha, and that's what was giving him extreme, endless joy. He experienced endless and supremely extreme joy within himself by finding himself within all things and experiencing the connectedness of everything to the all-attractive pure consciousness. That's Bhagavan Vasudeva. He welcomed into his heart infinite, powerful emotions. So that's Hridayena Abhinanda. He welcomed into his heart Rodhena Bhava. Or even it's something Ananta Rodhara Bhavena. Rod is like Rudra. So the emotional expressions like crying, wailing, those extreme emotions came into his heart as a result of seeing the beauty of the reality of everything. All this affair is going on the surface of him acting like a crow, a deer. That's all just like stuff that's just going on so that he can keep his focus on seeing the essence of everything. And that seeing the essence and seeing how everything is the divine consciousness and how everything is therefore connected. And that's oneness. Oneness isn't a lack of individuality, but oneness is a connectedness of the individuality. And by seeing that oneness, it made his heart fill up with these very moving emotions, Rodhena Bhavena, that made him cry. And he welcomed that. But he didn't welcome something else. He welcomed into his heart infinite powerful emotions that obscured the value of all the most complete perfections. This is relevant to anybody studying Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is what's described. This is what Rupa Goswami describes about Bhakti. He welcomed into his heart this bhava, these feelings, which were worth so much more than anything else, like all the siddhis. By doing yoga and mastering your mind, you get immense power, siddhi. You get immense power, superpowers. Indeed, all the powers of yoga. So he was going to mention several of the 8 classical powers of yoga. But all the powers of yoga gave themselves to him effortlessly without him seeking or caring about them. So what are those powers? The Siddha Samstarta Paripurno Yogaishvaryani. The completeness, Paripurna of Yogaishvarya, yogic power of Siddhi. Nanjasa Nirpahridayanabhinandat. He didn't even care about it. But Yadriche Upagayatani. It just came to him automatically without seeking. But he didn't welcome or use them. What are the powers that are mentioned? Vaihayasa. That means people can describe it differently. It's basically levitation or flight or freedom from the law of gravity. Vaihayasa is liberation from gravity. So it enables extreme density or lightness at your will. So you can sink or rise just by your will, by your mind. Manojava means to be able to travel as fast as you can think. So one of the yogic powers is it just enables travel between universes and so forth. As soon as you can think of something, you can be there. If you can put your mind in a place, then your body can go there also. Another yogic power. Now you guys are all drooling over the yogic powers because we have no sense of bhakti. Anyway, let me sell you on these yogic powers first, and then tell you about the thing that is even better. What else is there? Manajava Antardana. Frodo Baggins, you put on the ring, you disappear. Well, you don't need a ring. And you're not going to get corrupted by it either, I think. Antardana means you can... So just like there's freedom from gravity, you can also have freedom from light. You can manipulate how you react with the waves, the sounds in the waves. So you can cease reflecting light. So you can become invisible. So I don't know, why would you use invisibility if not for something nefarious? Maybe there's something you can do with it. I don't know. Parakaya Pravesh. So you know how like you can take over somebody's computer by different softwares, or you can take over somebody's Sony PlayStation and play it for them. So you can also take over somebody's body. If you have full control of your own mind, you can actually plug your mind into somebody else's neural network. And then via that neural network, you can control their body. Why would you want to do that? Unless you're being nefarious. Maybe you could help them do something that they can't do on their own. It doesn't seem very useful. But it's a power. It's one of the powers that comes as a byproduct of having the mind completely under your control. Another one is Durhagrahana. So Duragrahana is a category of powers, it basically means the grasp of things that are outside of grasp. So you can actually literally, one of the cities in this category is Prapti, where you if you want to shoplift, you don't have to actually go to the store to shoplift. You can pull the Hope Diamond off the shelf without even going into the museum. If you want to eat, I don't know, a Hawaiian pineapple and you live in Alaska, it's not a problem. You can just reach out and take that pineapple from a Hawaiian tree. I don't know, people will be like all into this, but I don't really see the purpose of it. Another city in the category of Dura Graha is all the clair this, clair that, except clair nocti. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clair whatever is in this Dura Grahana. So that means like you can see things that are remote, you can hear things that are remote, etc. It's all because your mind is under control. So if you could plug it into somebody else's sensory apparatus, and therefore you could hear what somebody else hears, even if they're 50 miles away. The teleportation thing, I'm not quite sure how it works technically. Yeah. So people that have a lot of plans, they really want these powers, but people that don't have plans, that was Rishabhadev's whole thing is, what's the karma of a person who's, I forget the exact word, but their kama is already satisfied. Their lust is already satisfied. What do they strive for? Well, if your lusts are strong, then you would really like this kind of stuff. Fly, sink, get big, get small, and multiply yourself. Do all this kind of stuff would be really cool. But if all your desires are filled, what do you need any of this stuff for? And that's the point. That's the point, is that the only thing that really fulfills us is emotional experience. That's the only... What consciousness wants is experience. That's what consciousness is, experiencer. It doesn't want toys, it wants experience. And the experience, which is the way the consciousness experiences most directly, is the emotion. The object is indirect, creating the emotion, and the emotion is what the consciousness actually experiences. So if you're getting saturated and bathed in emotion, then you don't give a damn about stuff, toys, cars, money. You don't care. Powers, superpowers, the ability to fly like Neo in the Matrix. No thanks. Why? Where would I go? What do I need from there? So that's the point. When you have bhakti, when you have love, which is love of all the emotions, is the most delightful. When you're experiencing love and joy, which goes together, then you don't care about anything else. So Rishabhadev had that experience of love. What is love? Love is how we feel about ourselves. And when you see yourself existing in everything, connected to everything, then all of a sudden the love becomes infinite. That spontaneous feeling that we have about ourselves, which becomes infinite, becomes not only strong and meaningful and purposeful. Yeah, not only infinite, becomes strong and meaningful and purposeful and good and helpful and useful. And that makes everything else pale by comparison. So there you have it. The wild tale of Rishabhadev's renunciation. Any questions about that, about what Rishabhadev did? Suraj, but you said in the Aquarius Rising video that they look for no emotional experience, but still they're not content. What should they do? Just because they haven't had a satisfying emotional experience. Because they're not fixed. That's what I said in the Aquarius video. To have a satisfying emotional experience requires fixedness. It requires dedication to something. It requires staying with the emotion. The emotions have stimuli. You have to stay with the stimuli. The thing which is stimulating the emotion, you have to fix yourself with it and stay with it. Otherwise the emotion recedes. And so the problem with Aquarius is that it's moving. It tires of the fixedness because it's an air sign. So it moves off too fast. Looking for something to fulfill it, but it just left the thing that would have fulfilled it. Sunita, the mind control siddhi is useful in Tantra when the master clears the initiate's karma. That's interesting. I think I could sell you a bridge in New York City also. Yeah, actually, if you could like PayPal me like $10,000, I'll send you the papers for the Brooklyn Bridge. Because if you believe that somebody else can clear your karma, then you don't know what karma is. So you're just asking to be taken advantage of. What the mind control siddhi is useful for, actually, is for manipulating people. That's what it's used for. Can it be put to good use? Yeah, sure. If you can accomplish a good aim by manipulating people. And you can even help them do things that they wouldn't have been able to do on their own. But you cannot clear their karma. Karma accrues to the agent performing the karma. So if I controlled you and made you kill your mother, you would not get the karma of having slayed your mother. You may get 0.1% of it because you didn't protect yourself from being controlled by me. So this is some slight fault on your part. But 99.9% of the karma is mine. So do you understand that? So if I control your mind and make you do actions which would exhaust your karma, I am not exhausting your karma, I'm exhausting mine. Jonathan says, perhaps a bit off topic, but I have heard a rendering of the mantra Om Namo Shivaya is not mine Shiva, because Nama means not me. So Nama Shiva or Nama anything means the attention is off me and the attention is on X. Alf, as soon as I was translating this, I just thought Alf is going to love this. Sunita, if you think that's what's written in the ancient tantric texts, then quote something from an ancient tantric text. I would like to see that. Any question about Rishabha? Like you guys were asking why. You guys had some practical questions at one point. Like, why didn't he just go to the mountains where there's nobody? And the answer is people followed him. People would follow him around. Because he's Bhagavan. And even though they don't know it, he's very attractive. And you can have that experience even if you're an ordinary person like Lady Gaga or something. Yeah, you want to go to... Where are you going to go? Good luck. Rishabh Dev is very punk rock. Are people from Rishabh Rashi similar to him because of the similarity of the name? Vrisha is not Risha. Vrisha means something that deals with rain and fertility and crops. Risha means something which is the best. So no. I mean, you could say that Rishabh, people tend to be very beautiful. Hence, avatars often are in Rishabh ascendant. But that's about it. All right, you guys have no good questions because you have no good questions. Where's the quote? He probably quotes in English, doesn't he? So Devana asks a good question. He wants to teach them. Why stop the live? Because we started like an hour or something ago. he wants to teach them by doing this. Obvious question. So that's his whole the whole point of an avatar is yada hidharma siglanir bhavati bharata taradmanam srijamyam. Whenever something important has been forgotten or misunderstood, then that if only I can solve it, then I will appear as an avatar at that time to reinstate that or to fix that. Actually, he doesn't even say if. So somehow, some avatar, it might not be in a fully manifest avatar. It might just be he might empower somebody to do it, to fix the problem. So this particular Paramahamsa Dharma had not yet been elucidated. Remember, this didn't happen in 1492. This happened in Padmakalpa or something. This happened shortly after Brahma's creation started to take momentum. Rishabha is a descendant of Priyavrata, not that many descendants down. I mean, we did that whole family tree, and actually I can't really remember. It's escaping me now, but it's not that many generations away from Priyavrata. It's very early in the universe. Brahma didn't explain this Paramahamsa path. So Vishnu came to show the Paramahamsa path. And many other things which had not been specifically explained. Many other things like, well, how do you do basic things? Like even blacksmithing and things like that. Rishabhadev taught that initially. A lot of things that weren't explained, he explained. And one thing that wasn't explained was Paramahamsa Dharma, avadhuta Dharma. So he took the opportunity to do it. To teach people what the Paramahamsa Dharma is, what the avadhuta Dharma is. By his example, of course. That's how you teach. You can't teach without an example. It would be like a piano teacher teaching piano without playing the piano. You can't teach without example. Now, I think maybe you're on the trail of asking the question of why? Like what? Like how important is this Paramahamsa Dharma? Like, huh? Are we supposed to go put poopies all over ourselves in the forest? Like, what? So that is actually the next chapter. The next chapter that comes up is going to address that issue. That it's relevant for only very few people. It's really irrelevant. And then it gets misappropriated very dramatically. So they're going to talk about that in the next chapter. Shukadeva and Parikshit are going to go over that. No, Paramahamsa is not a Gotra. Paramahamsa is the title of a state of mind. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for this fun time together.